is being called to order. I do detect a quorum, so thank you everyone for being here. Not only do we have a quorum, but we have all 15 members present, so thank you all so much. The first item on the agenda is the public comment period. As we know, 4 members of the public will be permitted to address the committee during the comment period. No one actually signed up for the public comment period today, so we will go ahead and move forward with the consent agenda. I will read through the bill numbers, and if you want anything removed from the consent agenda, please let me know. On the consent agenda, we have RS 2023-102, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, BL 2023-80, -83, and -111. Before I read the captions, are there any that anyone knows that they want to bump off? Councilmember Sawyer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. 104, 111, 119, 80, and 83.
1 moment, Councilmember Sawyer. You said 104, 111. What was the next one? 119, 80, and 83. All right, are there any others that council members would like to have bumped? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and start reading the captions for the consent agenda. RS 2023-102, Porterfield, referred to the Budget and Finance Committee, approves a contract between the Metropolitan Government and West Publishing Corporation to provide a comprehensive online legal research database for attorneys and paralegals in the Department of Law and other metro departments. RS 2023-105, Porterfield Styles, approves the terms of a cooperative purchase and master agreement for a multi-user manufactured restroom building for the Metropolitan Parks and Recreation Department. RS 2023-106, Porterfield, Gamble, Coopin, and others, approves the Fifth Amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2017-965 between the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and Affordable Housing Resources. RS 2023-107, Porterfield and Styles, approves the grants from the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee to the Metropolitan Arts Commission to allow artists and members of the Metro Arts staff to attend the Arts Administrators of Color Conference in Chicago. RS 2023-108, Porterfield Evans, approves agreements between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Metropolitan Government and the Department of State for the provision of administrative law judges. RS 2023-109, Porterfield Evans and Bradford, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement and coordinate activities and services related to HIV prevention, testing, diagnosis, treatment, and surveillance. RS 2023-110, Porterfield, Evans, and Coopin, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health for public safety partnerships in high-impact areas to use available data to identify populations at high risk for adverse consequences from substance abuse and employ evidence-based interventions that are responsive to population needs. RS 2023-112, Porterfield, Evans, Allen, and Prepty, approves the contract between the Metropolitan Board of Health and Meharry Medical College to provide public health experience opportunities for its Master of Public Health Program students. RS 2023-115, Porterfield, Evans, and Prepty, approves Amendments 1 and 2 to the Healthy Start Initiative, eliminating racial ethnic disparities grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide a variety of services in reducing infant mortality for pregnant and parents and women. RS 2023-116, Porterfield, Evans, and Coopin, approves Amendment 2 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide public health activities to enhance the health and well-being of women, infants, and families by improving community resources and service delivery systems available to them. RS 2023-117, Porterfield, Evans, Bradford, and Coopin approves Amendment 1 to a port security grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to the Metropolitan Office of Emergency Management for equipment to enhance current land-based and maritime response capabilities. RS 2023-118, Porterfield authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Jessica Garcia Pavan against the Metropolitan government in the amount of $62,669.02, and that said amount be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. RS 2023, BL 2023-111, Coopin, Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker authorizes the Metropolitan government to acquire a parcel of real property known as 1818 Cement Plant Road for the expansion of biosolids operations. Is there anything else that anyone would like to be removed from the consent agenda? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we pull RS 2023-108 and 110?
Thank you. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you. Could we pull RS 2023-107, please?
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Is there anything else that you all would like pulled from the consent agenda? So we had quite a few items pulled off. So just for clarity for everyone, I'll run through which items are on consent. RS 2023-102, RS 2023-105, 106, 110, 112, 115, 116, 117, 118, BL 2023-111. Those are the items that we still have on consent. All right, seeing no one else that wants to bump anything, can I get a motion? It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. It has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Councilmember Evan Siegel, would you like to be recognized? Microphone.
Did you say you pulled 109 or 110 from consent? I think Councilmember Allen tried to pull 110, but I thought you said 109, but I could have just misheard.
I have 108 and 109 off of consent. 110 I missed, but we will pull 110 off consent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for catching that. All right, so the consent agenda passed 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-77, Porterfield, Ewing, Styles, and others, approves an in-kind grant from the Friends of Warner Parks to the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to provide funding for the purchase and installation of a Metropolitan Historical Commission historical marker for the 1811 house in Percy Warner Park. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Evan Siegel, you're recognized.
Yes, Chair. I just had a question about the wording of the sign. I think this came up last time and no one was here to answer, which is it seems to recognize the owners of the house who resided there, but nobody else. And I was going to see if we could get that language broadened to include all persons who live there, included enslaved persons.
Thank you, Councilmember Evan Siegel. We have Tim Walker in the back, and you are recognized.
Thank you, council members. Yes, our commission, that marker, let me back up a little bit. That marker, as you know, is proposed by Friends of Warner Parks, and that text was written by them. And as you can see, there's a lot packed into a two-sided marker with the text with limited spaces. That we did have some of that information, but Friends of Warner Parks had proposed the language as is, and the commission approved it that way. That marker hasn't been fabricated as of yet, and If need be, we could certainly go back to Friends of Warner Parks, they're the sponsor and are paying for this marker, to see if they'd be willing to entertain trying to include some of that. And Bob Parrish is here representing Friends of Warner Parks, and he may want to add to that or clarify any of that. I do know they do on Metro Parks website, they do have more interpretive information. There's a lot more that could be packed into that that explains some of those details. And certainly on many of the markers, it's a priority for our commission. They do put that information. It just depends on what they prioritize. So I'll let Bob here speak to that too.
Thank you. You are recognized.
Thank you. I will just say that there were two of us on the Friends of Warner Parks organizational group that helped to draft the text, a member of the board of Friends of Warner and myself, a staff person. And as Tim said, you try to pack as much information as possible into the limited space on the markers. And we focused a good bit of that text on the structure and the fact that it contributed to the parks being listed in the National Register of Historic Places and how it was restored. And Tim mentioned to me that there may be other ways, in addition to the marker, that we could go into more depth and tell more of the story of the property and the families that were involved with it. But we are just anxious to tell an accurate and full story of the history of the park, because the park really is an important recreational resource, natural resource, and historic resource for the community, and we want to do a good job of interpreting and preserving that history.
Councilmember Evan Siegel, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate all the work that went into the sign and in restoring the house. I'm very familiar with the property. Actually, my favorite pictures of my middle child are taken in front of that house. But I do think it is important that even if it is just a short phrase that we recognize, if we are to recognize any of the residents of the house, that we recognize that there were also residents of that property who were there without their consent. And so I would encourage us to maybe go back to the drawing board, and I would even be willing to help figure out how to fit it in. And ChatGPT is actually really, really good. I would just say if you can pop something in there and say, make this so many words or characters, and it'll spit it back out and really help kind of with that creative process to make sure that we are inclusive fully. And so I would just ask, I would move, I think, to defer this until we can come up with some better, more inclusive wording for this sign, as generous a gift as I think it is.
Councilmember, how many meetings would you like that deferral to be? Did you want to maybe check in with Mr. Walker to see about how long they think that process may take?
Yes, that would be helpful. I'm not sure when the Historic Commission next meets and how quickly we could get that in front of them, but certainly wouldn't want to defer it any longer than necessary.
So we meet again in December. The committee will meet the second Monday in December. That might be pushing it. So I would say let's plan on deferring it until the second meeting in January.
Okay. So I would move to defer it until the second meeting of January, with thanks to y'all for understanding.
Of course.
Clarifying, Councilmember, there's only one meeting in January.
Yeah, so the first meeting in January on the third Tuesday, or
January
third
16th?
week of January. Yes, correct. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I am hearing a motion to defer it until January 16th, 2024.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the deferral? Councilmember Swear, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. I speak in support of the deferral, but I just wanted to add this as the board is thinking about the language and everything, is that even though this marker is being donated, it is on Metro property, it is on public property, and the impression it gives was that that wording comes from Metro. So I think as the board is looking at it, they should look at it from that angle, that, and I appreciate your willingness to go back, but please, we're looking at it as, yes, it's donated, but it's on public property. People look at it as public idea, and we want it to be as inclusive as possible. So thank you for that.
I'm sure the committee will agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Before we take a vote, Mr. Walker, I do have a question. With the commission, I don't know if you can speak on behalf of the commission, but would the commission be willing to possibly partner with the Minority Caucus, or if the Minority Caucus, at the will of their chair, our chair, would be willing to have a representative to work with you all on that? Would you all be open to that type of partnership?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so very much. So the motion is for a deferral until January the 16th. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-101, Porterfield Evanson Prepty approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Children's Services to the Davidson County Juvenile Court to provide juvenile justice supplement funds to assist in employing a youth services officer. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded, and I see Judge Calloway in the back. Judge Calloway, would you like to speak to this grant, and then we'll open it up for any discussion?
Thank you, Council Lady. I appreciate being here. This is just one of a housekeeping grant that we usually get from the Department of Children's Services to help us to fund another probation officer. That position, of course, works with our young folks in the community that are justice involved to make sure that we are providing as much services that we can to keep them out of the justice system as much as possible.
Thank you so very much, Judge Calloway. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-103, Porterfield authorizes a Metropolitan Department of Law, the Metropolitan Department of Law, to compromise and settle the claims of Benaz and James Solkowski, SSE Investors, MCH Construction of Tennessee, and Cobalt Ventures, LLC, against the Metropolitan government in the amount of $66,353.18 to be paid out of the NDOT Sidewalk Fund. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? And we have Laura Fox here from Metro Legal. Laura, can you speak to this for us, just for the record and for the sake of the viewing audience?
I can speak to you, but instead I'm going to hand it to Allison Bussell, who's the Associate Director over Litigation.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is the first batch of claims that we have received since we developed a sidewalk claims process following the unfortunate ruling in the Knight litigation that led to that settlement, striking our sidewalk ordinance. So our hope is that this process will allow people to seek reimbursement promptly and get that money if they are entitled to that money as promptly as they can. There is also a class action lawsuit that is pending challenging the same ordinance. So we do, as the result of a hearing that occurred last week, have a better feel for what we anticipate the court is going to say is the statute of limitations that will govern those claims. And so as a result of that, our hope is that we can get our arms wrapped around sort of what the total anticipated payout will be. But for now, we plan on continuing to see, analyze these claims as they come in and pay them as we believe that we should recommend to the council doing so, while also trying to figure out what the scope of the lawsuit is and hopefully kind of wrap that up simultaneously as well.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Bussell. Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a quick question in regards to the amount. Do we know if this is going to be on the high or low end, or is it just too early to tell in regards to future instances?
I would say that, do you mean each individual claim? They really cover the spectrum. I mean, we see claims under 5,000 that wouldn't need council approval. Most of the time when people actually build sidewalk, that results in higher claims. The in lieu fees typically are lower than the actual cost of building sidewalks. So most of the claims where folks have built sidewalk, you're going to see, I mean, sometimes it's 6,000, sometimes depending on the length or the size of the sidewalk. I mean, we've had even in lieu fees in the tens of thousands of dollars. So it really is a range that covers the spectrum. One of the things that we are working with NDOT right now to do is kind of pin down that 1-year time frame of potential claimants. And that should give us a better feel of the actual dollars that we're talking about. Now, with the building of sidewalk, it's a little tricky because we need information from the claimants to be able to determine what those amounts are because they built it and expended the money to do that. For the in lieu fees, it's easier because those are our records. So these are all things that we're trying to get our arms wrapped around right now in hopes of just getting these claims that would potentially be paid out in court. We want to get those paid and wrapped up so that there are no attorney's fees continuing to accrue through that process as well.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Bustle, and thank you, Councilmember Huffman. Are there any additional questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2023-104, Coop and Porterfield and Gamble approves the Ninth Amendment to the lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government and Square Investment Holdings, LLC, for office space in the Washington Square building located at 222 2nd Avenue North. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Swear, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to this particular bill, I always bring it up anytime that yes, every time that we have a lease renewal, I'm always of the opinion that we should keep looking at our buildings that we have. So for this particular one, in looking at the data, I went back and looked at how much rent we'll be paying. It came up to about $9 million. In 20 years, we would have paid $35 million on this particular lease. And so the reason why I keep bringing it up is that we have the option to have Metro Properties, and I use this as a conversation when I'm talking about the Morris building, where there's a conversation about probably buying and renovating and using as office space as a way where we're not continually renting from other people and paying other people, something that we could put into actually owning a building. And so that's why I pointed up and I wanted to do that. But my question, somebody had asked me that it's not just about the purchase, it's also about operating the building. So my question for the administration for this lease is that, does this amount, this $8 million or $9 million for 9 years, does it include utilities and stuff, or is it all inclusive, or do we still pay for utilities?
Thank you so very much, Councilmember Soror. I will recognize Mr. Brian Sexton, who's here with the administration.
Yes, we will double check on that. Laura and I will get together to see if it is in fact all inclusive, and I can get back to you with that information if that's okay.
Yes, and
I think it is all inclusive. I'm pretty sure, but I'll double check.
Okay, can you also check on whether insurance is included, all of the operating costs that is included? Because when we're comparing costs, we want to make sure that we have all of that. And so my bone of contention is that we're renewing it for 5 years. We have the option to continue to renew. And if we do that in 20 years, we're spending about $35 million. And that could go into a building. So, but if you could check on the operation cost or operating costs, that will help as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Soror. Is that information just for your knowledge, or do you need that information to vote?
I think it should be sent to you.
Okay, so the request is that the information be sent to the full committee, but to be clear, you're not making a deferral motion at this time?
No, I'm not making a deferral motion, but I would like for how much will it cost us in 20 years renting from that building, not just the rental payments, but also all the additional costs attached to it.
Thank you, Councilmember Soror. Is there any additional discussion? Councilmember Allen, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked in planning about the jump in the rate between 2023 and 2024, and I didn't know if there had been time to get that information or if new people had entered the room that might know why it's going from 1894 square foot to 2250. And then it seems to be more like a cost of living increase after that.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Do we have anyone from the administration? We do not have a,
Okay, so if we can provide that information when we provide the other, that'd be great. Thank you.
okay, thank you so very much. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know kind of, because the lease question I know will continue to come up until we make some other decisions. Would it be possible to get kind of a spreadsheet or something related to all these leases and like the long-term amounts and, you know, termination dates and all that stuff to kind of look at some of these things, I guess, more holistically? I think it's kind of harder to keep up with, you know, in these onesie twosie passages. And I don't know, so that's my first question. My second question is, if it's possible, would it require legislative action on our part, or is that something we could just request and then be provided as part of budget and finance?
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. So what I'm hearing is that you don't like information to be piecemeal together?
This is true.
We do not need legislation, per Director Darby and Mary Jo Wiggins, we do not need legislation, and Mary Jo Wiggins is giving me a head nod that she can provide that spreadsheet. So the information that will be provided to the Budget and Finance Committee will be the total cost over 20 years, including rent, insurance, utilities, and any accessory costs. While there was a rate increase, a significant rate increase followed by a cost of living adjustment increase. And then if we can get a document that outlines the leases that are coming up, termination dates, rates, that comprehensive information on leases. Okay, thank you so very much. Excellent questions, everyone. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Motion carries 14 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention. RS 2023-107, Porterfield Styles approves a grant from the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee to the Metropolitan Arts Commission to allow artists and members of the Metro Arts staff to attend the Arts Administrators of Color Conference in Chicago. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Evans, you are recognized.
Thank you. This one just caught my attention only because it's a grant approval for a conference that's already happened. And I just didn't recall, you know, what the answer is. If something's already happened, when we're making an approval for a grant, it seems like, I guess we're just making the approval regardless, because I assume everybody already went and they probably already spent the money to go. And so I guess I just want a little more understanding about that part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Ms. Wiggins, would you be the person that could answer that, or should? Yes, the question is that this is to approve a grant to attend a conference that has already happened. So is this a reimbursement, or why are we getting it after it's already happened? Okay, and Ms. Wiggins said that she will find that information out. Do we have anyone here from Metro Arts that can speak to it? Okay, thank you so much. Come on down. You are recognized.
Can y'all hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chair, Committee Chair, and committee members. I'm Jonathan Sadd. I'm Grants Manager with Metro Arts Commission, and I was just asked to come down here and answer any questions y'all might have about this particular piece. Sometimes this happens with grants and sometimes when we receive an award, but this was done very quickly is my understanding. So when the opportunity to attend and the opportunity to obtain these funds, it happened pretty quickly, and there wasn't enough time to bring it before this committee and before council for approval in advance. But they did attend already. And I believe our director as well as several artists attended the conference. But the funds were awarded, and so now it's just an opportunity to receive those funds accept those funds now from Community Foundation.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Evans, do you have any additional questions?
No, that answers my question on that piece, so thank you for that. And I guess the only, it's more theoretical in nature is, what if this were something super controversial and we were all like, no, they shouldn't have gone? What happens then? Are those people like left in the lurch because they spent money and then wouldn't get reimbursed?
Who can address that? Director Darby is nodding, so I'm going to recognize Director Darby.
Yes, in a sense, they could be. It could be possible that the department that authorized their employees to go to a conference has the funding to pay for that. And then I don't know if the arts department or commission was this way, but it could be that they would have paid for that, the conference, and then they're seeking the reimbursement through the grant. But if the employees had gone to the conference with the knowledge that their employer was going to pay for the conference, then presumably the department would have already have that lined up in their budget.
I see. So it's still, the onus is still on the department if they made the commitment to the employees.
If they made the commitment to the employees, yes.
Okay. I appreciate that information. Thank you.
Excellent questions, Councilmember Evans. Thank you so much. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2023-108 Porterfield Evans approves agreements between the Metropolitan Board of Health, the Metropolitan Government, and the Department of State for the provision of administrative law judges. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can someone just explain why we're not just using Metro judges, why we're paying the state for judges?
We are going to recognize Laura Fox with Metro Legal.
These are administrative law judges. They're required to be a neutral party, and there's a process in state law that sets that up. And some of these are truly through the administrative law, the APA, the administrative division. So there's not the choice of using a Metro judge for this.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Allen. Any additional questions? Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-109 Porterfield Evans and Bradford approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement and coordinate activities and services related to HIV prevention, testing, diagnosis, treatment, and surveillance. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Somebody bumped it off consent, y'all. Did anybody want to discuss this? 109 HIV prevention? Last call. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-110 Porterfield Evans and Coupin approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health of the Metropolitan Board of Health for public safety partnerships in high-impact areas to use available data to identify populations at high risk for adverse consequences from substance abuse and employ evidence-based interventions that are responsive to population needs. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you recognized?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would be interested in hearing from probably somebody from the Health Department what those interventions are and if they actually are part of this grant. Is this grant actually going to touch people?
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. We have our friend of the council, Tom Sharp, joining us from Metro Health Department. Mr. Sharp, you're recognized.
Madam Chairman, Council Lady Allen, this is similar to the one we had 2 weeks ago. This one is primarily monitoring. This is the HIA's high impact area. We are only a part of it. So we work in conjunction with the Cumberland Regional Office of the State Health Department for the larger area. And basically they're trying to know where to apply whatever it is that they're applying. That's what this one is for, is it really an assessment piece.
Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
And so can you address then where, I mean, we've talked about this, that there's, there's opioid settlement money coming that will provide the actual treatment itself. Is there funding already for this treatment that will actually happen, or is this waiting on that settlement as well?
Well, I mean, there is treatment out there. It's just sort of piecemeal, it's not really functioning as a system. What we're hopeful to do with the opioid settlement funds is create the sinew to knit it together as a system and function, because there are opportunities out there for treatment. For the opioids in particular, it tends to be really long-term.
Right.
So you really have to stick with it. They have to stick with it. So that's what we're going to try to do, hopefully with that money.
And these two grants are helping put that framework in place.
Know who you're looking for.
That's a
yes.
good thing. Okay, thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Would anyone else like to be recognized? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 15 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. We actually don't have 15 anymore. We have lost some people. Mr. Councilmember Johnston, so are we at 14? 14 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2023-111, Porterfield Evans Allen approves a health promotion services grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to promote healthy people goals, a 10-year program of national goals and objectives developed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to reduce disease and improve health of all Americans. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Sawyer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. My question to the Department of Health is, I love what it's supposed to do, and I think it's much needed. But looking at the details of the grants, I can only see that it's covering salaries only. And so my question is, what are the services the constituent will be receiving, and where would the funding for that coming from? Or is this a partial application? Is there supposed to be more funding coming? I wasn't sure, but looking at the financial data, I can only see salaries in the application.
Mr. Sharp, you are recognized.
Yes, ma'am. So it looks like $900,000. That's over the 5 years. The annual amount is 185-ish. It varies a little bit. That is primarily for people to do the programming. They do, if you've seen, I'm sure, the Healthy People goals for 2020, and now the 2030 ones are out, and there's a whole range of those things: non-smoking, eating healthier, get your immunizations, and that sort of thing. They do all sorts of community programming work to try to get those things taken up by the community. And it is primarily salaries. Yes, ma'am.
So that's for the people that are going out in the community.
Yes,
So where would the funding for the promotion and getting the people, and if there's stuff that people are supposed to get, are they just supposed to, I mean, I'm trying to see how this works in terms of how it connects to the people.
So, I mean, I don't know how much of that money they can or do use for promotional materials. I know it's some. So if you go to a community meeting and you talk to people about the risk of smoking, I can tell you that we have had smoking cessation classes, for instance, that we funded with this money for people that agreed to try to quit. And I'm not sure exactly how much of the on-hands kind of stuff that they do, except for promoting healthier behaviors in view of the ends of the Healthy People 2020 or 2030 goals.
Okay. If you would just send something to me about how the program works, and it could be that your department may be funding part of all of that. I just want to make sure that it's getting to the people.
Sure.
In a way that is impactful. So that's the goal. It's a good program, but if we're not talking, I know we have a bunch of people, but how does that connect to the people that needs to hear it, and how are we making sure that it gets to every part of the county, right? So that will be part of the application, or how the program is done, that I would be very interested in. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Sawyer. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Motion carries 14 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Mr. Sharp, don't go too far. RS 2023-113, Porterfield, Evans, Ellis, and others approves a grant contract between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative to provide expertise and staff in emergency behavioral health care to support the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department co-response model known as Partners in Care. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, is this now at all the precincts?
I will defer that to MMPD or Mr. Sharp with the Health Department.
Hello, Captain Cantrell here with the Police Department. To my knowledge, this would allow us then to have all of the partners in care in all of the precincts. So this would complete that program.
Thank you so very much. That is great news. Is there any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Don't go too far, Mr. Sharp. Motion carries 14 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. RS 2023-114, Porterfield, Evans, Ellis, and others approves a grant contract between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative to provide expertise and staff in emergency behavioral health care to support the Nashville Fire Department co-response model known as Responders Engaged and Committed to Help or REACH. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. I saw Councilmember Sarour, then Councilwoman Allen. Councilmember Sarour, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding and I'm glad that the partners program is going to be all countywide or all precincts, but this was supposed to be the program that does not have a law enforcement component to it, or am I mixing it up with another one?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Sharp, you're recognized.
Sorry. This is the non-police response program. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then my question is, when I'm looking at the one that we're saying that a lot of people want the non-police part of it, I'm looking at the Partners in Care, it's $3 million. I'm looking at this is only 200,000. And so is it because we're just starting it out, or why the contrast in the funding for the two programs?
Yes, ma'am. So the Partners in Care, as you know, it started, 3 or 4 years ago, and they've been adding 2 precincts at a time until we've now gotten to everywhere. This is the outset of the REACH program. It will be smaller in scope initially. The clinical workers will go with ambulances. This will be primarily aimed at, and it may be that we don't think that the population is as big, but I think for right now we're starting out small. So the Partners in Care will go to somebody who is acting out through some sort of mental health break that poses a threat to themselves or others. This one will try to target people who are primarily a threat to themselves. They have suicidal ideation, but it's a mental health issue, and so the ambulance and the mental health provider will go to them. And it's starting out small, and more than likely, if it's as successful as we hope it will be, it will continue to grow as the Partners in Care has as well.
So, based on the Partners in Care program for the last couple of years, do we not have data to back up how many people did not need police response in order to be able to start this program?
Maybe, but I do not know. I can find out, though.
Let's find out, because, and I say, I love both programs because it's an alternative and it's making sure that we're taking care of people with mental health without incarcerating them. So I'm supporting both of them. I just want to make sure that there was a great call for non-police response during the last budget cycle. So I'm trying to see when we transition, or how do we do both of them. So if there's data to back that up as we move on, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Sarour. Councilwoman Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Similar line of questioning. I'm so excited. I've heard from the police great things about the Partners in Care, and that it's really enabled them to deal with situations much more appropriately. And the third leg of this stool, my understanding, is the HEALS, which we haven't created a pilot for. So I would be interested to know, as we sort of grow REACH, which uses the fire first responders as opposed to the police, are we looking, or can we look to put in place a pilot that is based on the Eugene, Oregon model Cahoots, which is just a peer counselor and folks in a van, and that's just a nonprofit organization. And my understanding is that's only about 20% of the calls. So we're starting with the biggest and working our way down, but I would just be interested to know if we're keeping in mind that sort of third leg as we work our way through expanding this.
Yes, ma'am. As far as I know, we need to see how this one goes and what it tells us, and then we'll have a better idea of what else we may need.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted Mr. Sharp to know who is considered to be the Metro person in charge of the REACH program.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
Is it going to be you guys?
Mr. Young, you are recognized.
Yeah, so the REACH program is driven and directed through our EMS commander, Fred. Who asked the question? Was that you,
Councilmember
Evans? Commander Fred Smith and Brooke Haas. That's
Brooke, H-O-S-S?
H-A-S-S.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's who is actually, the pilot program for this is just wrapping up. But that's, if you need information, that's who you'd contact.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And thank you. And for the purpose of the viewing audience, that was Mr. Mark Young with the Fire Department. Thank you so much. Vice Chair Toombs, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. How many ambulances are part of the REACH program?
Mr. Young, you're recognized.
Yeah, the REACH program doesn't run in an ambulance per se. They run out of vans, and there's 2 of them. And they're dispatched from the 911 call center. And their primary function is, like Mr. Sharp was saying, depending on the nature of the call, if it's someone that's just having some mental issues that may be thinking about harming themselves or something like that, the REACH program is dispatched, and they assess the situation once they get there. They may or may not dispatch an ambulance to the scene, and they do have some really good numbers where this has been very successful in keeping someone that doesn't really need to be transported to a hospital, keep them at home, and then talking with the family members about next steps and stuff like that. So, but they do not run out of an ambulance. They run out of their own vehicle. Yes.
And with 2 vans, is that sufficient staffing to handle the calls that come in?
I think you may see something from Chief Swan in the upcoming budget about this program and maybe a request for expansion,
Okay,
if that helps.
it does. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Toombs. Is there any further discussion? Great questions, everyone. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 14 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. Don't go too far, Mr. Sharp. No, I'm joking. We're think you're off the hook for a little bit. The next item is RS 2023-119 Porterfield Parker approves the donation from GS Rivergate Apartments LLC in the amount of $50,000 as a contribution towards infrastructure improvements in the vicinity of 110 1 Mile Parkway. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Soror, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. This is just for clarification. In looking at the details, it shows that the Rivergate Apartment will be doing a project at 110 1 Mile Parkway. I guess my curiosity is, that project, is it already approved? And how does this work since they're about to do a project and they're giving us $50,000?
Thank you so very much, Council Member. We do have a representative from NDOT. You are recognized.
Hey, Council Members, Matt Purvis, Council Liaison to NDOT. For this project specifically, it is You are correct that the Rivergate Apartments are on Gallatin Pike, and those places are in that place. And originally, as approved, which it was approved by Planning Commission, and I believe by council already, as it was approved, they were going to make improvements to the bus stop, the south side bus stop of the 56th there. However, it lined up well to where we are also doing a complete street project there at the exact same time. So in coordination with the development, we wanted to avoid having two contractors trying to work in the same space at the same time. So we came to an agreement for them to make the donation, and we'll just include it in the scope of our project.
Councilmember Soro, you recognize?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will appreciate it in the future because I can't remember everything that we've passed, and maybe that's on me. But anytime we have a donation like this, maybe something to just say the project is already approved, so it doesn't, leave room for, are they giving us money so we can approve it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Soror. And Mr. Purvis, I do have a question before you sit down. Did we catch that request, everybody? Okay, thank you. Mr. Purvis, does the amount of $50,000 cover the full amount of what they would have taken care of, or is there any, is there additional, is that a portion of the amount, or does this cover the full amount?
From my understanding, it does cover the full amount of what they had been on the hook to do in the first place, yes.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstaining. RS 2023-121 Porterfield Parker approves an agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the City of Belmead, the City of Brentwood, the City of Goodlettsville, the City of Laverne, the City of Millersville, the City of Ridgetop, and the White House Utility District for the selection of a rate consultant in wholesale contracts. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? Is there a second? Second. Sorry, I didn't hear it. Thanks, y'all. It has been moved and properly seconded. We do have, I believe, Jim Snyder with us, and I believe I saw Mr. Scott Parker, Director Potter, with us as well. But if we could have someone from Metro Water to speak to this, please. Mr. Snyder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember, for considering this piece of legislation. We currently have a contract with our wholesale customers, and this relationship goes all the way back to the mid-'70s, and it was involved EPA, where basically the water department is more of a regional wastewater purveyor, and so we have contracts with them. That contract expires October 1st of 2024, and so this legislation is a request from the council that allows us just to partner with each of those wholesale customers to hire a consultant. And once we hire the consultant and they go through the process of going through and determining that cost related to that part of the infrastructure that they use, we will be bringing those contracts and rates back before the council body. I'm going to say sometime mid-spring, something like that. So it looks like that maybe we're really ahead of the curve on this, but it takes a little while because understand there are 8 government bodies that have to agree on a consultant, get all that work done, and get it back before you for your approval. So we greatly appreciate your approval on this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. Bills on second reading. BL 2023-80 Bradford, Porterfield, Gamble, and Evans approves a lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the Nashville Metropolitan LLC for office space at 1281 Murfreesboro Pike. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. I have a feeling Councilwoman Soror wants to be recognized. Councilwoman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to Councilmember Evans. I wouldn't have to do a whole lot on this one because we're going to get a spreadsheet. But this is another one where we have $1 million a year rents for a 10-year lease. I used to be on the Metro Action Commission, and I love that board and all that they do. But this is about leases, and this is about what we're paying out when we have the opportunity to, and I'm going to say Morris Building, save a building, renovate it, and use it for office space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Soror. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Abstain. Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. BL 2023-81 Porterfield Bradford approves a sole source contract between the Metropolitan Government and Carasoft Technology Corporation to provide hosting and security services for Nashville.gov and licensing and support services for departmental systems. Can I get a motion? Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Thank you, Vice Chair, for anticipating that. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Evans, you are recognized, followed by Councilwoman Swerve and then Councilwoman Evans Siegel.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to know if the administration has had a chance to dig into this agreement yet.
The administration is recognized. Do you mind repeating the question, Councilmember Evans?
Yes, I just wanted to know if the administration had a chance to look at this agreement yet.
I have not, but I'll look at that and get back to you with the information you need.
Okay, I think my thought in looking at it, well, first, the sole source nature, the value of it, but then also, the notion that our current mayor, is a tech person, and I know at that level for him to have some scrutiny over this, because it is what is included as the potential relationship long-term going to align, with the fixes that he is committed to related to Hub Nashville and other tech fixes. Does this potential provider meet his requirements, not just IT's requirements?
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. And we do have Michelle Lane here from procurement to answer any sole source questions or procurement questions. We're going to go to Councilmember Soror, then Evans Siegel, then Councilmember Huffman.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question for procurement, and I have one for ITS, if anyone is here. For procurement, my favorite subject, sole source. So, Ms. Lane, as I was looking at the package, the 25 million caught my attention as well. But as I was looking at it, there was an email that was attached, and it was a correspondence between someone to finance that was saying that this does not necessarily have to be sole source, or does it have to be sole source, and that there's an opportunity to actually do it through the state. Now, what I did not see was the response. Did we pursue that option of using the state and not using sole source?
Yes, Ms. Lane, you're recognized.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we did. I mean, we often think about various procurement strategies when we're seeking to procure for state contracts, as well as cooperative purchasing. The state statute requires that we accept the terms of those contracts as they are. Now, this kind of goes back to some of the discussions that we've been having about sole sources and about the way that we negotiate. And if we negotiate those with sole sources, we are required to negotiate. So the procurement regulations, a single line in the regs, one heading with one line, that the purchasing agent shall negotiate. So in this specific instance, it was decided that the specific terms that were there, we needed to negotiate those, and given our inability to do so because it was a state contract, that's why we looked to the sole source nature of it. Specifically, there are 4 pieces of software that we know today that we need that are only available through Carasoft as a reseller. There's at least one other that is practically available from only one source, which means there may be, 1 or 2 other sources out there, but it's in Metro's best interest and to our benefit to include that so that we can take advantage of the volume pricing. And so that's why we look to that as the option for that procurement.
Thank you, Director Lane. Councilmember Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. And Ms. Lane and I have been having a lot of conversation on sole source, and I think our department is also looking at things that we could be doing better. So I appreciate that. That email just caught my attention, and I wanted to make sure that we address that. So thank you. My next question will be for the IT department. So we have, thank you, ma'am. we have another sole source IT bill that I think is on third reading that's for like 10 million. And when I was looking that, it's talking about Nashville website hosting and everything. Then I'm looking at this one and then I'm seeing similar thing. I'm not an IT person. And so what is the difference between the 10 million and the 25 million? And can we not get the 25 million folks to absorb the 10 million so we get a better deal? I don't know if it works that way, but it's what I mean, if somebody will explain, if we're trying to do so many things together and get a good deal, but then I'm looking at two different contracts in my analysis, and they're both sole source and they have similar language.
Thank you, Councilmember Sorora. You are recognized, and if you could just introduce yourself.
Dawn Clark, ITS. The bill on third reading is Nettango, and they're a website development and support of the actual underlying software, Drupal, which is what we developed the website in. And so that is what that is. Carasoft, as Michelle said, they're a reseller of several key products that we use. One of those is Acquia, which they actually provide hosting services for Nashville.gov, as well as some advanced kind of security for that hosting, so that we're protected from outside attacks, that kind of thing, firewalls and things like that. So completely different products. This is the hosting of Nashville.gov versus the actual development services. So that's why they're two different. And Nettango is a separate, smaller company that does just the development. They don't do the hosting. So those can't be combined. Nettango is not a product that's resold by Carasoft.
Councilmember Sorora, do you have another question?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Evans Siegel, before I recognize you, Ms. Clark, before you sit down, do we have any information or data about what comparable cities our size are paying for website services and hosting? Because I agree with Councilmember Sorora, once you're getting into 25 here and 10 there, that's a lot of money for one website. So do we have any comparable information about what other cities are doing?
Well, I mean, the total contract value for Carasoft isn't just Acquia. I mean, we have Acquia over potential up to 10 years is $3 million across all those 10 years. So, I mean, I'd have to research. I don't know all the website hosting and what their amounts are. I mean, I can do my best to research that. But when we redesigned the site the last time, Acquia was the recommended hosting service from our implementer that won the RFP for the website at the time, which was Nettango. So I'm not an expert in website hosting, but I'd have to gather more information on that.
If we could get some data on what comparable cities our size, what they're paying for their website services, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Councilmember Evans Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I've emailed a little bit with ITS, and I'm a little confused as to the answer I've gotten, and I think it'd be helpful to go over them here as well. My understanding is that we are being told we can't directly negotiate with, say, Salesforce or DocuSign, which in my experience in the private market is not the case. And so I'm just confused as to why we can't do that as well.
And would that question be best directed to Director Lane or the administration? Director Lane, you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take a stab at it. I mean, we could negotiate directly, individually with those. We would not be able to take advantage of any kind of volume pricing on those. So we'd be negotiating one-off deals with each one of those. Whereas Carasoft is a reseller that has relationships with each one of those, and part of that provides to us some discounted pricing. And so that gives us an advantage that way. May I also just note that the pricing that we're looking at on these are for the 10 years. So we are not automatically, for lack of a better term, in bed with them for 10 years. It starts out with 5 years, and then we would relook the market at that time. And if it's still in our best interest to move forward, the council has approved that action for the 10 years, so it would not have to come back. And you've also seen what the proposed pricing is for that 10-year period. So you've got the full scope of it to make a decision today, but it's not a guarantee because the burden is on us to think about whether or not it's financially feasible in Metro's best interest to continue down the road for 10 years. The market could change in 5 years. In 5 years. The market could change in 5 years, in which case, if it has, we need to consider competitive solicitation at that point.
Thank you, Director Lang. And just a clarifying question, and then I'll come back to Councilmember. So is that 12.5 million for 5 years?
So yes. So what you would be looking at is 25 million over 10 years for one, and then 10 million over 10 years for the other. But the initial would be half of that.
So if we only utilize them for 5 years, then it would be the 12.5 and the 5. And then at that point, the council can determine if they want to extend for the other 5 years, the other 12.5.
Technically, the council would be authorizing me as purchasing agent, or whomever the purchasing agent is, to then execute that renewal if it's in Metro's best interest to do it. But you've got all of the information now about what the proposed approach is so that you can make that decision. The burden then would be on procurement to understand what the market is like at that time and not just kind of make a decision today that we know what things are going to look like in 5 years.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans Siegel, did you have any additional questions?
I do, Chair. Thank you. I'm concerned because it seems as if we are assuming that Carasoft is a better price than if we directly negotiated. And I know that in the private market, in my experience, these are prices that can be negotiated. And it doesn't look like we are getting, based on the exhibit I was provided, significant discount. And so I think, given my concern and other folks' concerns, if we don't move this bill forward today, where does that leave us with tech? Do we have a contract in place for this software while we figure out where the administration is and whether or not these prices are fair?
Thank you, Director Ms. Clark.
Well, I can't answer the administration question, but to your question about on the long list of products and services that Carasoft is a reseller of, you know, there are certainly products on there that a department could, you know, go and directly negotiate if they chose to. Approving this contract and this kind of this maximum contract value allows us as an opportunity as an enterprise-wide contracting vessel for all of Metro departments to utilize to get this, you know, the negotiated terms and rates. But if, you know, if a department reaches out and, you know, DocuSign is one that, you know, could be directly negotiated with and has been, you know, so if somebody, you know, wants to put on their best negotiation skills and can, you know, can get a better rate, this isn't forcing them to use this contract. They could still go that path if they wanted to do it. This is to allow all of those that, you know, like Salesforce, which is for Hub Nashville, for example, they only go through the reseller of Carasoft. So for us to keep using Salesforce, I mean, we have to go through Carasoft. And as Michelle noted, you know, if we don't have this contract in place, you know, we have to go through the state, and then we don't get our preferential terms and volume discounts. So
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Oh, Director Lang, did you want to respond?
And I think, and council member, tell me if I'm off base, but I think what you're asking is, why would we not, toward an enterprise-wide effort, just simply negotiate directly with, Salesforce and all these others ourselves, rather than going through CareSoft as a reseller? And I believe the answer to that question, and I know that your experiences in the private sector, may be a little bit different, but is that, we're able to, again, take advantage of better pricing this way than if we were to do it one-off. If it is beneficial to this process, what we can do is take a look at what, individual pricing would be and provide that as, clarifying information so that we can then provide you with a comparative analysis of the two.
Councilmember, you recognize?
Yes, thank you for that. I think the question still is what happens if we don't move this forward today. It does seem as if maybe it's not ready to move forward if we don't actually know what the competitive pricing is. It also seems like setting up metro departments to negotiate on their own outside of this contract is a silly way and a wasteful way to go about deciding how we pay for things. And I know some of my other colleagues have questions, so if you will, Chair, I will let them ask their questions, but I'll be back.
Thank you, Councilmember. Director Lang, did you want to respond to what will happen in the event of a deferral?
In the event of a deferral, I mean, we would not have a contracting vehicle in place, and in so much as some of these can only be procured through CareSoft as a reseller. I mean, in the exhibit, there's a full list, right? But then there's some that we know that we can only get through CareSoft as a reseller. So, we'd have to go then and look at them in a one-off basis to develop contracts with them as sole sources, and then potentially not benefit from, again, that pricing, the pricing incentive that's related to this. I do want to just say that I agree. It is a silly approach to have the departments. I mean, that's what, strategic procurement is. So we would not be asking departments, to go off and negotiate on their own. But to the point of those items that we can negotiate directly for the purpose of trying to get some better pricing, I think that what I hear you saying is, do we know what that looks like so that we can then provide an enterprise-wide solution for departments?
Thank you, Director Lang. We currently have a contract with CareSoft?
We've been using a cooperative for CareSoft.
I'm sorry, what was that?
A cooperative.
So we do or
It's a
don't?
cooperative purchase agreement. So the contract is not directly with us, but we have the ability to buy against that cooperative.
Will we be able to continue to do that if this is deferred, is my question.
I don't know the answer as of today, but I'll get back to you because I need to go and look and see what the extension or the expiration date of the cooperative is. So we may be able to do it in the next, few weeks, but we have to make sure that we don't have an end date on that cooperative because then that ends our ability to continue to purchase.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans and then Vice Chair Toombs.
Thank you. I've got two questions. My two questions, first one for Director Lane. Just so I understand, on sole source agreements like this one, how long did it take your team to get from the beginning request from IT to it now being before us?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at, we maintain a project portfolio, a piece of software on a SharePoint site, and it has all of the dates, and I don't have that in my head. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
And see when we got it, and then, has it been 2 years? On this one? I'm sorry. Madam Chair, I'm sorry. We're conversing back here. I'm hearing Ms. Clark say that it's been 2 years on this one,
Okay.
particularly to negotiate it.
Okay, and thank you very much. And then, Ms. Clark, the other question I had for you, just for my clarification, the Net Tango relationship, so that's like more the look and feel of the site and kind of the public interface, is that what they handle?
Yeah, the actual development of the, like if we need a new module or, or if there's a, we just send them some things about, updating the way that the mayor and vice mayor's pictures display on mobile. Then they do that they do that back-end
Okay.
development work on the website.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. And my apologies, Councilmember Huffman, I accidentally skipped you. So Vice Chair, if you don't mind, he was in the queue after Councilmember Evans Siegel. My apologies. So Councilmember Huffman and then Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that very much, and appreciate you, Councilmember Toombs, for letting me jump you there. Just a couple of things to note. First off, outside the mayor, I believe I am the only other nerd that is employed in the healthcare IT sector. I see some things that concern me within the proposal as it is. I hear a lot of the questions that are coming from my colleagues, and those concern me as well. One thing, though, that I really want to point out is that notably missing from this, and I would really like a response from ITS on this, there's no guaranteed uptime in this. And in the year 2023, we are consistently, as a city government, going to be under attack or risk of attack from various nefarious actors through malware. So that obviously concerns me. And before I continue with my questions, I'll pause for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Huffman, Don Clark, you're recognized.
Again, this is for Carasoft, the reseller of the products and services. So the individual SLAs for the uptime and that kind of stuff, that's in the SLAs that we have from Acquia. So that's not part of this. I mean, I can get you that particular agreement that I think it might be an exhibit, but.
Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Before we make any decisions on this, I'm going to advise that this body pauses and defers this. It seems like there's a lot of questions going on here.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffman. We will go to Vice Chair Toombs, and then we'll circle back to anyone who may want to make a motion. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So I wanted to, there's been a lot of different comments and questions, and I know there is some concern about the cost, and I'll say as a, being in a management position for a government agency and I deal with a lot of IT stuff, those contracts are not cheap. They are, particularly if you're talking about over a year's time, they are in the millions of dollars. In comparing Nashville to other cities, I would also, you have to dig deeper than just looking at the price, because you have to look at the functionality of the different websites and software that other cities use. For example, Nashville.gov may have more functionality, more functions than Chattanooga.gov. So just keep that in mind. I also think a lot of the questions that I'm hearing have more so to do with the procurement process. And I know that we've put a process in place to handle these types of agreements. So I'm wondering if the concern is more so some of the concerns coming from the contract as written have more to do with the actual procurement process. Because listening to Ms. Clark and Ms. Lane, they follow their process with this contract. And so my concern is, that we can't necessarily fix this contract without actually fixing the procurement process. And not saying there's anything wrong with the procurement process, but if there are issues with this contract, that may be linked to what the actual process is.
Thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Councilmember Gregg, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also be curious, as we analyze this proposed contract, is the 5 and then the 5-year renewal to make it a total of 10 our only option? As we know, things are constantly changing in the IT world, and that's a large commitment. And I'm all about negotiating. So just curious if there's other options besides the 5 and 10-year mark.
Thank you, Director Lane, you're recognized.
Absolutely. I mean, we can, make a contract for as small amount of time as we deem appropriate. And, the thing that we have to think about with that, though, is that most of these vendors are able to incentivize, a longer term contract by giving us some volume pricing. But we could absolutely have a year contract. We could just have a single 5-year contract. That's the most that the procurement code authorizes me to enter into. The ITS department can speak to this better, but I think for systems and, parts of the IT infrastructure that are just really fully baked and they want to ensure continuity, they're seeking to have the option, if we see at the end of a 5-year period that it's in our best interest to do so, to then go to another 5 years. And then, of course, the council would have to approve that, so we're bringing it now. There's no guarantee that these are going to be for a 10-year period, because we could get to the end of, an initial 5-year period, which is what is, most of our contracts are initially with a maximum of 60 months. We could get to the end of that or toward the end of it and determine that the market is such that we really need to now go and look in a different direction. And we absolutely have, the ability to do that. If we do that and it's determined that, this really still is the best option for us in terms of what competition is like in the marketplace and et cetera, then this body would have already authorized us to stay the course that we've already established.
Thank you, Director Lane. Councilmember Gregg, do you have any additional questions? Councilmember Druffel, you're recognized.
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to make a motion to defer this one meeting with the recommendation that we provide all the questions for the next meeting in advance so that we can get those answered in time to make sure we're comfortable with this. Thank you.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on a one-meeting deferral with the questions being provided to ITS and procurement? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did we get that end date question answered? Do we know if the end date is next week and this will be problematic or not?
Director Lane, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get to the system and take a look at it, and then I'll be able to come back.
So if we move for deferral as a committee, we're committed at tomorrow if we discover on the council meeting that there's a problem with that?
Director Darby, you are recognized.
If the committee moves for one meeting deferral, then it will be an automatic deferral on the floor, meaning no debate or deliberation. If you move for a 2-meeting deferral, however, that is not the case, and if it's determined that any deferral would be problematic, then you could make a different motion on the floor tomorrow.
And if it was determined that a deferral could be okay, we could also make a 1-meeting deferral
Yes.
motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Director Darby. Do you have any additional questions?
So I would just request that the sponsor maybe move that to a 2-meeting deferral to give us some flexibility.
Councilmember Druffel, you're recognized.
I absolutely agree. We're just trying to create the time and energy to answer the questions. And it sounds like with your advice, 2-meeting deferral is the best option. So let me redo the motion for a 2-meeting deferral.
All right, so Councilmember Druffel withdrew his original motion. A motion has been made for a 2-meeting deferral with questions being presented to Director Lane and Don Clark with ITS. Any additional questions that we may have? It looks like Councilmember Huffman seconded that deferral motion. Is there any discussion on the 2-meeting deferral? And for the clarity of anyone that did not catch that, per Director Darby, once we get to the floor tomorrow, if we find out that the deferral will be hurtful, we can then make a decision on if we want to go forward with the deferral, if we want to do a 1-meeting deferral, or if we want to kill the deferral. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of a 2-meeting deferral, vote aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. We have one more, y'all, last thing. BL 2023-83, Coopin, Porterfield, and Parker approves an agreement between the Metropolitan Government and PR2/SH Peabody Union Apartments Owner LLC, a Delaware limited liability company concerning the use of parking facility by employees and visitors to the district energy system generating plant. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Soror, you're recognized. I don't think that this is office lease, Councilwoman Soror.
It's not. Thank you, Chair. Just curious. I wanted to know where the employees were parking right now before this. I'm also curious as to, is the department getting anything? And then number 3, it says we'll get 75 hours for free. what happens if it's over 75 hours? What is that rate? And that was not mentioned in the contract, so I was just curious.
Thank you, Councilmember Sawyer. Is there someone that can speak to this? Mr. Sexton, you recognize?
I can research that information. Gotcha. I got you.
Thank you. So we don't have that answer at this moment. Councilwoman, you still want to go forward? And it looks like we do have Mr. Honeysucker with Metro Water Services. You are recognized.
Councilmember, this right here is just an agreement for the people that are doing the work right now. It's for 75 hours. Any additional thing, anything over that, it's not costing Metro anything, but anything additionally over those allotted hours will be charged to the individuals that are parking there. They are being made aware fully upfront that this is a courtesy, that they allow them to park there, which is a great value to the Metro employees and the contractors that are utilizing the facility.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Honeysucker. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. We did have a presentation for the disparity study, y'all, and that will have to be rescheduled. Also, we will have another presentation upcoming, and I will make sure to get information out to you all so that we'll know the date of that once it's scheduled. And with that, committee adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.